Smith. Scott, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest today.
Neil, I am great. I'm very excited. We have Jeremy Conescu with us today. Jeremy, did I say that right?
It's Conescu, but thank you.
Conescu. I apologize. Jeremy Conescu. Welcome to the show. We're glad you're here.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start off. Tell us about your company, Maslow Murphy.
Sure. So Maslow Murphy is the idea we came up with. It's a mashup of Maslow's hierarchy of need and Murphy's law. So Murphy's law is anything that can go wrong will. Maslow's hierarchy of need, for people who don't know that, is that you have this pyramid of what you need to do to become self-actualized. So first you need to have your basic physiological needs, food, water, shelter. Then after that, you need some level of security. So you need to feel safe that your food, water, and shelter aren't going to be taken, a job, things like that. Once you have that, then you have your tribe around you, your love, your friends, your family, and intimate relationships. And then you have esteem, like self-esteem and the esteem of others and recognition. Once you have those things, you can become self-actualized and become what you were meant to be. So for founders, I think a lot of founders just race to let's do the best we can. And they don't think about the opposite side of that, which is Murphy's Law. So for us, we say it's not enough to help you succeed and get to where you want to be. We have to plan for things to all go wrong at the same time at the worst possible moment. So that's kind of the idea of Maslow and Murphy. But thanks for asking about that.
All
Yeah.
right. So, and it's very intriguing how you came up with the name. Now, how do you serve your customers? Explain how you do that and who your ideal
Sure.
client is. Mhm.
So there's this philosophy I heard back in grad school called unkunks, and an unk is an unknown. It's something you can plan for. People taking time off work. So you have sick leave, people go on vacation, the power goes out. You can plan for those. I think in the United States, the pandemic was an unk. It's something that we just didn't have any context for. Companies were wiped out. I had a friend who kept telling me, you should plan more, you should save more, you shouldn't be going to trade shows, you should be very, very kind of conservative with what you do. During the pandemic, he thrived, not because of the pandemic, but he thrived because they had planned for complete systemic failure of the government. Like they had these really bizarre, extreme cases planned for. So he was able to take advantage of that, and he exited his company during the pandemic for, mid nine figures. And we were watching like, well, who could have known? Well, he knew. People know, and you hear about these things. So what we do is we try to surround founders with a network of people who've been through what you're going through and give them the tools they need, not just to do well, but to not fall down. And I think a lot of that involves getting a board of directors, getting supporters who aren't competing with you, who are in very different fields. And then you ask them questions and they say, well, did you think about this? And you should plan for these things or have this document ready or whatever. But that's a lot of how we do it.
Wow. I think it's needed, Scott, isn't it? For
No, it's
sure.
absolutely needed. So, Jeremy, you set a bold mission to help 1 million founders get to market. How do you do that?
Um, I think our reach should exceed our grasp. I think it's important to set goals that we can't meet yet. And I
Okay.
think yet is a really important concept in that. I could reach 100 people or 1,000 people by myself, but I can't reach 1 million yet. So I have to take my ego out of it and I have to change my mindset from how do I do this to how does this get done? And when you think of it that way, then it becomes a system and then you're putting processes in place. So by the time I get halfway there, I'll know how to get all the way there. So I don't actually know yet. Part of that was let me just put that out there. And I've had a huge amount of feedback from people saying, how can I help you? And that's kind of it, is you just build that type of thing in public and you create a system where you have to think outside of your own brain and look for support in ways that you didn't have to before.
Jeremy, when you look at this and putting all these founders together, what tools do they bring to the table for your organization that really is a game changer for somebody that wants to join?
Sure. That's a great question. I think a lot of that has to do with their mindset. Like I look for people who can identify a problem and they might identify a symptom and they might not be able to articulate the problem. And I'm a storyteller, so that comes to me. But if they can see a problem and they're trying to fix it and they have a solution and they're like, this is going to save the world. The ability to identify a problem, not just an opportunity, but actually a problem that you want to solve, and then the passion to go after it, that's all you need, because everything else can be taught. I think a lot of founders, and I can talk about this at great length, fall in love with their solution, not fall in love with the problem. And you need to train people to look at the problem and come up with 100 solutions. So you come up with things that the market will consume. And we can talk about that more, but I look for people who are passionate about solving a problem that they find.
So you may need to add Edison to the Maslow Murphy name, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because that sounds like very Edisonian.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
Edison was supposed to come up with a better candle. Like, he was working at Procter and Gamble. So his job wasn't to come up with a light bulb. And people told him, you're failing. Why don't you quit? And he's like, I didn't fail. I found 1,000 ways this won't work, but I'm not there yet. Like, I'll get there. So I think that's a really good point. Like, one of the things that bothers me that people come to us with is that our school system trains people to be afraid of failure. What I mean by that is the school is actually financially incented to tell people there's a right way and a wrong way to reach a goal. Now, what this does is, in a school situation, you're training task-oriented people that it's okay to punish goal-oriented people that try and fail. And that's just a way to crush little blue flowers in people. So I think founders, for the most part, know that you have to fail, know that challenge makes you a better person, it makes you stronger, it makes you grow. And that's not something, so you have to kind of balance that mentality of, I want to fail. And you have to teach them, okay, fail quickly, fail as fast as you can and get those ideas out there, get feedback, iterate and grow. And that's how you succeed. You're right. We should have Edison in the name. I'm not sure where we'll fit it though.
So how do people get involved with you? Is it
Right. Yeah, no. That's a great question. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us on Maslow Murphy if that's your question. And then
more like, so is there people that are not founders that work with the founders based on your organization?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, I work with a lot of really big companies. I work with global companies to do launches and get products out. And those people they're doing their job. But there's always somebody in that organization who has a what if mentality. So sometimes people come to me. A couple of years ago, a big company called us, and we didn't have to fill out a pitch deck. We didn't have to do anything. They just called and said, hey, we're losing $1 million a day. Can you fix it? And that was the whole conversation. And the response was, sure. And they gave us whatever tools we needed. They're like, go crazy. And we went in and looked at their stuff, and they were losing about $1 million a day. And we did a root cause analysis. We talked to their team. We found out where the holes were. I tried to get other people involved. They thought it was too risky. We fixed it. And that was it. So I get calls from people who've seen solutions that we do. And they say, we don't know how to do that. We know that you can fix this. We don't even understand the problem. Go find the problem, go find the solution. And that's how we do it.
All right. Well, I
That's
think
fascinating.
So go ahead, Scott, your next question.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine, Neil. That's fascinating, Jeremy. So you mentioned working with big brands. So what are some lessons from big companies that you can bring to small founders who are trying to get off the ground?
That's a really good question. The biggest thing that you can take from a big company is there's this book called, I think, The Obstacle is the Path, something like that. And I think big companies are built on obstacles. Like, they're built with, okay, this is how we're going to do it, and we have to follow these rules and we can't deviate. And I think for a founder, the biggest thing I can take from a big company is, if you can look at the obstacles a big company has, they're intentionally underserving specific markets, and that is your market. So so what works for a big company won't work for a founder, because they don't have the same resources, they don't have the time, they don't have the money. But a really great example of that, I think, is this ice cream company I heard about a couple of years ago called Halo Top. And Neil, you might know about this, but Halo Top was this nutritious ice cream. And they, their thinking was, hey, we're going to show people that you can also be nutritious. And they put it in the freezer section of the grocery store, and it languished for years. And they were like number 107 out of 90 brand. Like they just didn't
Oh,
do
wow.
any business.
Yeah.
And after 3 years, they're like, okay, what are we doing? Well, we're trying to change people. But you're not going to change people. So instead of trying to change someone who's going in to a grocery store to buy 3 gallons of chocolate ice cream and eat it, watching TV, you're not going to change their behavior. So they went from being the healthiest ice cream in the grocery store to the only ice cream in the gym. And they changed their packaging from Halo Top ice cream, we're healthy, to 240 calories, 14 grams of protein. So when you're done with your workout and you get to the college, the dorm fridge in the gym, it's like smoothie, RX bar, ice cream. And it looks like a nutrition label. And they became the number 1 selling ice cream in the country just because they went after an underserved market and crushed
it. It makes complete sense, Jeremy, what you're talking about, because you kind of change your direction. You could be a successful company, can become so much better based on just that idea moment. And that's where this comes to founding. So when you have a bunch of founders that work with people. So like, let's say I wanted to get like pitch where my agency's going and where I'm making shifts, and see that I really need that help. And I know I need that help, but I want people that have done it, walk the walk, talk the talk. What do you do? What do they do next? They contact you on LinkedIn,
Sure.
or is it, do you have other founders,
so-
or do you have like, you basically set people up with other founders based on the area?
Sometimes it's that. Like I actually connected with somebody who had 450 retired salespeople in his group, and I teach boot camps for sales and data analytics and things like that. So I was thinking, okay, so if I'm talking to Rite Aid, I can go get a retired sales executive from CVS who knows exactly what they're going through. And I can find people who've fallen down in those areas and say, well, look at it this way. I was talking, so I mean, there's a huge, especially now, especially in this era of automation, where thousands of people are getting laid off all the time. So
Yeah.
I hear stories on LinkedIn where people are applying for jobs. The job has been up for a day. 417 people applied to a graphic design job. 38% of them have a master's degree. Like there are so many people out in the world who have all of this knowledge. And I think their capital is that they can go to companies that are fresh and have a great idea, and they can guide them to being extremely successful. And that's the market that I want to build.
One more question, Scott. I want to ask, how many jobs are lost every day because of AI right now you're seeing?
Wow, a couple of years ago, there were stories in the Wall Street Journal about copywriters who were learning welding. It's a lot. I mean, I know I use AI all the time. The pitch to launch, which is, if I can tell you about this for a second, this is something where for the last 6 months, I've been interviewing founders and investors and angel investors and fund managers and startups. And the one common thing I heard in everybody was they don't need somebody fancy. They don't need a shinier pitch deck. They need feedback in a way that they can consume. Because if you're a founder and you go to your family and you're like, oh my God, look what I did. They want to help you and they just don't know how. So you're looking for that kind of that tribal support, and they're giving you tough love, and it's really defeating. When I tried to find a tool that would help people that was cheap and fast, so an AI tool, I found a bunch of AI tools, and I showed them to my wife, and I was like, oh, look, this exists. And she said, that doesn't exist. You're a person. Those are robots. Look at them again. And I went back and I said, okay, if I put in my idea for a company into one of these things, it'll give me a great pitch deck. It'll give me competitive analysis. It'll give me everything I need. And I said, well, what if it's a bad idea? So I went into one of these and said, I want to make mailboxes out of pasta. This is a true thing. I have all the screenshots from this. And it came back with a beautiful pitch deck. And it told me all the competitive analysis for pasta mailboxes. And it told me all the people in the pasta mailbox space. And then it pushed me into, you're going to need Google hosting. You're going to need legals. And I went, okay, so this is taking my idea and my time, and I'm investing time and energy. It's telling me I'm doing a good job. And then it's saying, please exit through the gift shop, which is kind of predatory. You're taking advantage of people because you're not giving them the advice they need and you're not helping them get ready. You're just saying, oh, I can make 10% on the Google upsell from you. And then you're going to send them in front of an investor with a terrible idea and they're going to get kicked out and they're going to be deflated and their idea is never going to make it to market.
Right.
The
Makes
other
sense.
side of that, yeah, and that upset me. Like that really pissed me off. The other side of that is that I went to one and it was basically the same type of thing. You put in your information, it makes you a pitch deck, and then suddenly you're in an investor marketplace and you are the product.
Right.
And I think the problem with that is that when you get into that situation, investors have a thesis. So if you don't match their thesis, they're not going to invest in you, and you've wasted all of your time and all of your emotional energy doing that. So I spent the time, learned the tools, and built something in the last month or two where you go in and you answer a bunch of investor questions, and in 1 minute, it gives you a 10-page gap analysis
Yeah.
of everything you want to do, and it's $20. And I've tested it with people. I have 2 clients right now that I work with, like on an agency level. One of them, their company, Aquasmart, they clean municipal water systems with food safe ingredients. And they're the only company in the world that does that. And they do that all around the world. They're a fantastic company. The other company is a guy I've known for about a year, and he's building steel framed affordable housing. And he has it down. I'm not even going to tell you what his secret sauce is because we're working on everything right now. But he has a plan for a global rollout for this. And he used this last week and he went, this is fantastic. He said, this organized my thoughts immediately. I don't have to do the pitch deck. It tells me what I have to do next. It's really 5 or 10 pages of, you say your market's everybody, but it's really here. And it tells you what you have to do to get ready to talk to investors. And that's it. So for me, I started building the tools that will help people take their ideas out to the world instead of taking advantage of them and making $1 on that because it's a quick turnaround. That
Makes sense.
really upsets me.
So Scott, do you have another question? We're kind of running out of time with Jeremy.
Yeah, no, Jeremy, this is great stuff, man. I'm so glad that we had you come on because
Thank you.
absolutely tremendous value and such
Totally.
great advice. So before we wrap up, let's go to the very last question I had on my list here. Fast forward a little bit. What does success look like for you when you hit that million founder mark?
That's a great question. I think to me, making it 1 million founders as a goal is a very abstract number. So once I get a halfway there, or even a fraction of that, I'll be a different person with different goals and I'll understand how to do it. I consider myself as part of the supply chain of startups. So my success can only be measured by my impact. How many founders, how many startups have I helped take a great idea to market? Because my goal is to really create a more equitable society. I have 2 kids, so I want people to have, clean water and housing and the kind of companies I work with.
Yeah.
So for me personally, am I able to help people and then be able to support my family and have that kind of security? And then I being transparent about it? Are my children learning what it is to help people and not just do the work that somebody else gives you? So the way I measure success is, what is the impact to other people? I mean, coming on this show, will your listeners hear this episode and tell somebody about it, and then somebody calls me and I can help them
Right.
bring their idea? That would be great. Like, that's what I'm hoping for.
Makes sense. Jeremy, best place people can find info on you. Where can they go?
LinkedIn's great, but maslowmurphy.com. You can find me, and pitchtolaunch.com. You can go, and it's a self-service tool. You just kind of plug your stuff in and it picks it up from there.
All right. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show. And